Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. All sudah makan, huh? All right, okay. Now, before we begin, I think it's a really interesting topic about volunteering and charity when you travel. So, a show of hands, has anyone in this room done that? Oh, okay, very good. Okay, we'll open the floor for questions a little later. So we've got Deborah, we've got Nila, and we've got you. Very interesting because they all work on a different model. This is an NGO, this is a social enterprise, and that's an ethical business. And we'll get into that in just a moment. We heard a little bit from Nila this morning. So I just wanted to maybe start with you. We'll go to our neighbors first before we come closer to home. But you, your story is 16 years as a monk?
Yes,
Okay.
I was in a temple as a Buddhist monk for many years.
Okay, so tell us about your business and why did you make that transition?
Anyone familiar with Cambodia? Yeah, so it is a Buddhist country. Let's go back to some cultural context. Back in the old days, there were no schools beside temples, so temple is one of the amazing schooling place for all the boys. And every young boys have to be a monk for a period of time for education, at least up to 12 years. And I was grown up in a small village, and my great-grandfather was a monk, and my dad was a monk during the killing fields. And also because of that, stories I heard from very young, the inspirational stories from Buddhist teachings and how it helped you in a way that you can grow as a beautiful, nice person. And because of that, they sent me to the temple school and to learn. And also, this is an interesting topic about charity and travel, and also in the temple, we learn so much. I think it is very similar to many different religious teachings about charity, about donations, about doing goods, about giving things. But over the years, learning that and feel like sounds like some sort of paternalistic kind of overtones. And also, aids and charities have been flowing into Cambodia after the killing fields. But economically, the country is growing a bit, and also the numbers of charities and NGOs are increasing, which is a bit ironic. And I want to explore that because walking around, even in a temple, in the communities, in a village, people just want to give us things. People just want to, look at us and feel like we need something, and look at us and feel like, we lack of this, we lack of that. They want to help us. They want to change us in that way and this way. And this is something that I feel like maybe they should learn first, before jumping into. Of course, I strongly believe that good intention, doing charity and thing is should be celebrated, and it changed some lives of people. But at the same time, I think maybe people should slow down and look at these issues in a mindful way and proper awareness. And then I come up with an idea with three of us and thinking, well, how can we do to change that mindset and perception of people beside knowing Cambodia, just Angkor Wat and killing fields and charity. So we want to, maybe build a deeper connection, and people can feel like there's so many wisdoms and expertise in the country they can learn, they can connect to. Not just about going there and see Angkor Wat and then give things to Cambodian, So this is something that we do. So we specialize in offering trips for young people, mostly from the Western world, to learn on different various development studies experience as an alternative to volunteerism. So that's what we do, and also that transition from the temple into doing that for many years.
Nila, we heard your story a little bit this morning, but for those of you who didn't hear your story, I mean, you've got your libraries, over 100 libraries in 18 islands. I can imagine the challenge in doing that, and you support it through your social enterprise, right? But what led you on that path as well?
Which part?
Well, this path of getting
The
social
NGO.
enterprise and starting the library, what triggered you to do this?
So in 2009, I took the job as a communications consultant, and I was based in Labuan Bajo, the gateway to Komodo National Park. And living there, it didn't have anything basically, but in the weekend I was privileged to dive with mantas and sharks. But after 4 months, I got bored of diving and I traveled to remote villages and I saw how limited people live. They didn't have any electricity, no access to fresh water, and let alone have access to books. So I couldn't imagine my childhood without books. That would be horrible. So seeing these kids have never experienced the joy of reading, it was really heartbreaking for me. So I thought maybe I could do something. So that's why I set up Rainbow Reading Gardens or Taman Bacaan Pelangi. And later I found out that the journey has changed my life. I didn't get paid for 6 months of doing that, only until 3 years ago, one of the donors told me that, hey Nila, I pay your salary. But it was like nothing compared to my salary at a corporation. I tried to brave myself, like leaving my corporate career behind to focus on growing my nonprofit organization, because I thought that if I put my full time there, I could make a bigger impact. And also because I was curious of like living with my passion in travel to create a travel enterprise. So that's why like when I left my corporate work, I decided to set up Travel Sparks. It's a social enterprise in travel, arranging trips to Komodo Island, Raja Ampat, like exotic places in Indonesia, but you will visit the libraries of Taman Bacaan Pelangi, and then you will inspire the kids about your professions, about where you come from, and teach them your skills. And the profit goes to support the nonprofit organization, so we can build more libraries for them. So that's how it started.
Okay, and of course that part of Indonesia is very rural, without the basics and all. And I have been there. It is beautiful. If you haven't been there, you really have to go.
Yeah.
Deborah, your story, with what you've started as well. I know you've got Storm, and then of course you've got what you're doing right now in Sabah. But tell us about your story.
So if I can take you back many, many years back when I was 15 years old, I went on my first volunteer trip. Where we went was to the hills of Chiang Rai, where we helped local villagers build bamboo huts. And I was 15 years old, very naive. It was my first time traveling out of the country, together with my friends and without my parents. I was all pumped and excited and wanted to give. And so it was a very life-changing experience. But it was also a lot of fun because I got lost in the jungle while carrying bamboo. We had to, chop bamboo and then carry it all the way out of the jungle, and then literally, sweat and all our energy, we started building huts. By the end of the 10 days, we actually saw buildings come up. And then at the end of the 10 days, we then had a Christmas program for the kids. And seeing the children come from, just the surrounding villages, it made an impact in my life as a 15-year-old. Consequently, after that, I made volunteering a part of my life. And even as I landed my first job, I made sure that the number of leaves that I had, you usually start off with 14 days. I would first save the, maybe 5 days for volunteering, and then the rest would go to holidays. So it was a very gradual process. There wasn't really an aha moment. I just stepped into it and then realized that, hey, actually life is much bigger than that. But really, I would say for me, as the turning point for me where I made volunteering part of my life was maybe 6 years ago when my husband and I quit our jobs. And I'm originally from KL. To do a 1-year stint in Cambodia. So Yut is based out of Siem Reap, and I'm 3 hours away from Siem Reap. So we're in the rural parts of Cambodia in a town called Battambang. And I partnered with a local NGO there. And the partnership came about because I had been going there 5 years prior to it on short volunteer trips. So remember the number of leaves that I would save from the job. I have been going there every year doing different things. For example, building schools, teaching English, doing workshops, running medical camps. And then I realized, hey, I've gotten to know the NGO, but more importantly, I've gotten to know the community. I built real relationships there that I now call friends. And so we were keeping each other in contact through Facebook. You know, wonderful that we have social media. And this aha moment came when I realized, both my husband and I said, you know, if we were to just give up 1 year of our life and help this NGO, how much more can we do as compared to maybe a week there? And so we really took the leap of faith. We fundraised for ourselves, and including, you know, my 8-month-old baby at the time, and decided to just pack our bags and go. And so that leap of faith was that aha moment, and little did I realize that it would change my life altogether. And so after a year, it extended quickly into 2 years because we realized that the need was just too great. And so after the 2 years, we managed to build 5 literacy centers in the rural parts of Cambodia, where now children who don't have access to schools now have you know, some sort of education, and we train local teachers to now do the job. And so I think this morning we heard a lot about speakers saying, you know, do what you love, but then extend it to the people around you, because oftentimes we want to do good, but we don't know how to. But it's really looking within and seeing, what am I good at? And what are the needs around me, and trying to match that. So for me, volunteering was a journey. It wasn't an aha moment that just kind of changed my life altogether. It started when I was 15 years old in the hill tribes of Thailand, and so now I'm based in Sabah. So from Cambodia, we just decided, look, life is just too short to go back to our corporate jobs, and now we're in Sabah. We're working with local indigenous communities up north in Sabah. And in case you don't know, for Malaysians here, Sabah happens to be the poorest state, and honestly, I come from West Malaysia, and sometimes it's a little bit embarrassing to say this, that our fellow Malaysians across the seas, there is so much to be learned from them, and so much needs that are just in our backyard, but we don't really know about them. And so when the opportunity opened for us to visit some of the sites in rural Sabah, it just broke my heart, because I saw a level of need that was the same as our brothers and sisters in Cambodia. If I can, I would like to tell you a story that really concretized our decision to stay in Sabah. I saw a schoolgirl coming back from school walking, and she was sweating all over, and she was living in this semi-abandoned hostel that had mattresses as dark as this table. You could smell the mattress, way far from wherever I'm standing here and the mattress is there. I can actually smell the stench of the mattress. I walked into the kitchen of the semi-abandoned hostel, and that was where she was staying. And she says, I'm going to cook lunch now. And I followed her into the kitchen. And what happened was, I just stood there and I observed from afar. This girl started opening a drawer, and she took out a packet of instant noodles. And the packet of instant noodles was already open. She took out then a sliver of it and started boiling some water on the stove to make that sliver of instant noodles. This was the fact. After speaking to her, and sitting down with her, and sharing a meal with her, she told me, if I have instant noodles, I would take one pack every day. I would break it into 3 parts. It would be breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. And that level of need really caused me to think about the need around us. And if we can all do something, and if a need can move us to do something, then one life could be changed. And that's why I'm in Sabah now.
Okay, I'm listening to this, and it's in our own backyard, right? So there's also I guess people listening here, there are 2 ways, 2 things. One would be like, how can I help? And one, maybe you're motivated to start what she's doing. It takes a very big heart, right? And yours is an ethical business, yours is a social enterprise, and yours is an NGO. How do you keep it afloat? How do you fund this?
Traditional fundraising methods, and so I would knock on doors on corporations for CSR funds. And another way is also to allow people to give back. So all of us want to give back, right? But not all of us have the time or the capacity to volunteer. And so we create fundraising platforms for individuals to actually give. And so one of the ways is actually through our sponsored student program, where a donor is now connected to a particular student living in one of the hostels. So allow me to kind of explain. What we do in the foundation is actually to educate and empower native communities, young people who would otherwise not have no access to schools because they live too deep in the kampongs. And the only way is actually to build a boarding home or a hostel nearby to a local school so that they can walk to school. And so currently we have 5 hostels under our NGO, and we manage and operate these hostels, and over 150 to 160 students live with us. And so what we do is we allow people like you to give a portion of your monthly salary to impact a student. That's one of the ways. And then other, traditional fundraising methods. The other way is actually to have corporations adopt a particular hostel. Why? Because when people put money in, and people put money into a cause, it is very, very powerful for them to be able to see where the money goes to. And for us as an NGO, what we advocate is for whoever, our donors, to be able to see the site and the problem firsthand. And so if you were to partner with us, we welcome you to come to our sites to have a look for yourself what you can do to contribute. Yeah.
You also encourage volunteers to come.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we run a volunteer program as well called STORM. It's short for Short-Term Operation Relief Mission. And the beauty about this is that unlike other volunteering opportunities, because we are so we're on the ground, we know exactly the needs of the people on the ground, and so we match the expertise that are coming in to the needs on the ground. For example, if you are a retired teacher, we're looking for you because our students require extra tutoring and extra tuition classes to help them with their schoolwork. If you are good at gardening or farming, we need your help because we have a local farm that is now tilled and run by local farmers, but we need your extra hands to help with your expertise, for example, in permaculture and hydroponics. And so we match your skills, whatever you have, to the needs on the ground.
Okay. Yud, I'm reading your bio. You have seen firsthand how misguided good intentions can sometimes lead to negative effects, such as the booming orphanage tourism industry. I said, there's such a thing. And other disempowering approaches to aid. Can you explain what this means?
Go back to what Deborah just mentioned. Good intention and also spending time with people. And by spending time and you learn from them, and then you learn the complexities of the issues and the problems in the area, I think that's the best way to, I would say, to solve it and also to find some other ways to address that. But sometimes I think if people, I know we all in these rooms, every one of us have good intention and we want to help, but at the same time, I think I would encourage to, think and find some other ways and do research and to see, because when it comes to Cambodian contexts, in my hometown, there's about 3,000 NGOs. And also sometimes I think those NGOs are not run by Cambodian. And also the issues in that is that, there's so many tour operators around the world who marketed volunteerism as part of their package. And because I think tourism is very competitive, and also by including volunteerism in that package, it sounds appealing. And also the marketing words around that is you can help uplift the lives of people for 2 days or 3 days, and you can increase the incomes of local people, and you can improve education. But those complexities or problems are not solved within 2 or 3 days, are very complex. So basically, tour companies are selling development works, and at the same time, they're not expert in development. And that causing a lot of issues and problems in Cambodia and creating a lot of dependency among people. Some villages, they don't want to do anything, they just live there and just wait. Some, white people are coming in and give us things. And that's kind of disincentivized in a way. We're foreign versus locals, that Cambodian, I could not do anything. And those pockets of tourism are growing so fast within the last decades in Cambodia. So yeah, it's interesting to see good intention been monetized in that way. Right. And because I think we, most of the time we follow that intention straight away, right, but without thinking what are the outcomes and what are the, you might create more harms and you might, and that's, I think, education, learning first before you serve. That's one of the analogy that we believe and philosophy that we believe in Ayana. And along the line of what Deb just mentioned earlier about spending time with them and learn from them. And most of the time when we travel, I think we travel in our head most of the time. Example, you come from KL, you see KL have amazing infrastructure, big buildings, good roads, and when you go to Cambodia, you feel like, wow, they don't have this. Maybe they need this, this is a problem. They don't have road, maybe they need road. They don't have school, maybe they need school. So most of the time, I think if we come with that kind of mindset, and with a full cup, and your cup is always think that your cultures and your backgrounds and your countries are the best, and you tend to see problems and you make so many things that you see as problematic. And sometimes you come to it with a wrong intention. That's what I've witnessed through the years in Cambodia.
And so you would say that the long-term strategy is education, that people come in and it's not the quick fix, right? People come in and give money and and you don't know where the money goes to.
Yes, you don't know where the money goes to. That's one thing. And second thing, example, in my village, there's a group of students from New York City living in a big, cosmopolitan city, and they never touch the ground, they touch the earth. And they, come into village and teach my friends or my neighbors to how to do a farm and how to grow a vegetable. And they've been doing that for centuries, and they survive, and they're the expert. But then they come in for a few days and say, let's just do this. And they don't know how to touch a hoe, they don't know how to dig up the ground, they don't know how to water the plant. But then they walk away with a mindset that, with the kind of arrogance, like I fix Cambodian problems, I save Cambodian people's lives. And that's the mindset we don't want to teach people. We want to teach them to go and learn, even from that basic kind of agricultural knowledge and wisdom. That's important, and those kind of things, it could connect you to the global issues, like we talked this morning about refugees. What are the root cause of it? You can do that at home. You can educate yourself, and you can learn from that first, and they are the local experts. So once they be empowered and they believe in their skills, they can do better, But if you come in and say, I save you, I know best. And that's when the communities, it's tend to go wrong.
So we should go with a mindset to learn and understand what you need and not think, I can solve your problem.
Yes, I think it's most of the time we tend to exoticize that kind of other people's problems, and especially poverty. And when we travel places with things like other people's problems are easier to solve than our own problems, and that's what we think. And I think, if like Deborah Chan, if you're a retired teacher, you have proper skills, of course you need to also do research and see if your skills really match the needs of the community. But if you don't have skills, I think you should approach it in a learning way. And I think there's a lot of wisdom there to learn, lots of expertise to learn, and they inspired you. And it's, and at the same time, you also, give the values to the people that you meet, and, they create beautiful connections that inspire you for a long term, like what Deb just mentioned. I think
you were mentioning that you have volunteers coming in, painting a wall. Next week, someone else comes and paint that wall. So there are some buildings there with a lot of coats of paint.
It's true. This is a popular thing to do in Cambodia. If you, especially among school groups from America, Australia, and other places, they feel like I'm 15, and also, not offense for some of the participants here, but they said, I'm 15, I'm white, I can do things, I can solve things. And then they come to Cambodia and just paid thousands of dollars for that tour company who's based abroad and just marketed this kind of experience. And they, at the expense of Cambodian community. And also the problem in Cambodia is not lacking the paint of the wall, not liking the wall. The big issues in Cambodia is more than that. But the market, if you paint the wall in the school, you change Cambodian students' lives. But is that education? You need what, teachers? You need what, like quality, so many things like when it comes to education, not just about painting the colors of the wall and you make a difference in Cambodia. But this is a very popular package that many tool companies around the world been sold and marketed around saving Cambodians' lives. And then people done that 100 times, different colors. Next week I see white, and then 3 days later you see red. It's just a tourism product. And then people who done that, of course, inspired them. But is that something we want to teach our children when we send them abroad?
Could I also add something? Back to that painting wall. Many of us don't think about the employment opportunities on the ground, and so anybody can paint a wall. But what happens when you bring a volunteer in? It actually eliminates that opportunity for the local NGO to actually hire a local painter to do the job, right? And so you're taking money away from the locals when you can actually use the money to pay a local, and he gets to feed his or her family, and you have only one coat of paint. And that's all you need, right? So we don't think about it when we're volunteers. I suppose this entire session is to get us thinking about how we give and what we give and what is actually needed on the ground, so that we're not stepping into this very naively and saying, oh, I'm making a difference and I'm changing the world, but you are actually meeting a need of someone.
Yeah, can I add something? So some of our clients, when they knew that they were gonna go to visit our libraries, and then they say that, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna bring some stationaries, and then we would ask like, okay, can we ask how many stationaries are you gonna bring? Oh, 30. Oh yeah, better don't, better not, because there are 300 students in our libraries, and if you only bring 30, then the rest 270 will cry. And plus, we don't want to make the kids feel that they're victims of life. They have, people have to feel sorry for them, that they're entitled for donations. No, because it's kind of it's gonna change their mindset in the long term. So we always say that don't give anything. So by traveling, using Travel Sparks, you already help them, because the profit of the Travel Sparks goes to support us to build more libraries, and that is more sustainable.
So I guess in terms of misconceptions of people wanting to do this, what could be the misconceptions that people have? Not bringing the wrong things, not bringing any paint over. What else should we be looking out for people who are interested to do, volunteer travel?
Okay, not giving gifts to individuals because we don't want to show any favoritism. I often tell volunteers, even prior to them coming, that if you want to give gifts, please ask what kind of gifts or what kind of things our students need. And for example, I'll use the same example as stationaries. So we do have a lot of volunteers coming in, and the first few batches have been giving a lot of stationery. And so now by the time we reach the 50th volunteer, and they still say they want to give stationaries, I would actually politely decline and say, look, our students have enough stationaries. It's okay to say no, right? And instead of giving a gift to them, why don't you save the money and you donate it to the charity or the organization, and we will make sure that we are accountable to what you give us, and we will put it to things like, for example, paying for electricity in the hostels, or making sure that they have food on the table. Try to avoid giving gifts personally to somebody. I think the other thing is also try not to make promises that you cannot keep. I think this is something that is very you know, as you build relationships with the people on the ground, you tend to be very friend with them, and you know, by the end of your volunteering trip, it could be a week, it could be 3 days, it could be a month. You would have made considerable connection with them, and it's hard to say goodbye. There are a lot of tears, but the last thing that we want volunteers to do is, I will come back next year, when you can't really guarantee that you will be back. And I think that's a you know, emotional no-no, because you know, whoever that you're helping, the communities, they have an attachment as well, and so you don't want them to cling on to that promise and then not see you the next year, or you know, this could be just a visit. Yeah, so that's something that you should be wary about.
I'm really inspired by being part of this event, Zafigo 2019 Malaysia. And you know, when we talk about charity, giving things in Cambodia, most of the time we think about the involvement of European people and the Western world into that work. But something that I take away, and I think it's wonderful to see today in Malaysia, is to see amazing young people coming up, and also the involvement and participation of young Malaysians, and seeing this, you know, in their own community, but not travel far into the other side of the world, and then you make you a good person. You can solve so many things, and you can be involved, and you can make a difference in your own country. And you know, you don't need to travel to Cambodia, but if you can, if you want to, it's possible, you can do that. But at the same time, I think, as what Deb said, you do a lot of research and think carefully about what you should do, and you might create more harms, you know, around that problem that we already talked about. And I think in Cambodia, I wish to see things like this happen, you know, the involvement, the participation of Cambodian people. You know, like there's a lot of wealth in Phnom Penh, in the city, but it seems like it doesn't really distribute it, and you know, the ideas doesn't really get across. So most of the time we think, you know, we wait for someone else to do this for us. So one of my recommendation, I think, to stay connected and to follow your good intention is to do, you know, maybe think globally and act locally. I call it local. Sometimes you have to be local. You know, you have to do that, and you know, by doing those kind of works in your own community, it can connect to global perspectives and, you know, problems in other places. You know, it's most important thing is start from yourself and learning. And also, if I may, it seems like an advertising, but it's be part of this movement, and I brought 5 copies with me from Cambodia, and this is a book about learning service. We just flip the head around instead of service learning, and we flip our head around to the other side and say learning service. So this is a wonderful book, and written by a lifelong learner from different parts of the world, and also collecting different pitfalls of volunteerism and volunteers and charity. So I think it's a very good book to read about what to know and what to avoid, and what do you need to learn if you have the passion in doing that. So I got 5 copies, and if anyone interested, you can buy it now, or we can.
All right. You know, I think one of the things, you know, about bringing things, I'll contribute to a particular organization. They say never give gifts. You know, I mean, just if you need to visit, just give to the person that's organizing it, and they will sort out how it is. Because, you know, like you go and one kid has the coloring pencils, and you've got 90 people who are 90 other kids that are very angry with you. So you're going to create animosity as well. So I guess, like, when someone's looking at volunteering, a couple of things in their mind, like, what's the accommodation? What kind of money do I have to spend? That sort of thing. What are the expectations? And I know with women, toilets. Okay. So what's the mindset we should have when, you know, that when we do these kind of volunteering when we travel?
I think one of the most important things is you have to have an open mind. It's better not to have expectation at all than having like too much expectations. And also, please mingle with the locals. Be curious and learn about their culture, learn about how they live, and try to understand that, because you cannot force the way you live or your lifestyle to them. They already live like that for years and years, and it's part of their culture. So you cannot force something that they're not they're not. They're not. And also, I think another thing is when you're a volunteer for organization, please be mindful of the focus of the organization itself, because I have a volunteer and she already knows that we're focusing on literacy, and then like she contacts someone in the town who is like a trash hero, because she see that, oh yeah, this island has so many trash. Okay, I'm gonna fix it. And she's only there for a month, she said, but she only survived for like 3 days. And she already made a big mess because like, oh, I'm gonna fix this, I'm gonna fix that. And I'm like, oh man, you're creating more headache than helping, you know? Like, I told someone like this that you're only there for several days, and then you promise to all these local people that you're gonna fix their trash problems, but you leave after 3 days, and then it's our name who is at stake, right? So please don't do that. Like, don't mess up with the organization's focus. Please be a good volunteer.
And listen to the leaders, right? I remember having gone for one of mission work, and we went by a shop and we looked at things, and just the words that we say, I remember one friend was like, so cheap, so cheap. And I was like, and it's not cheap for a local, so just be careful with our words as well, the things that we say and our perspectives. Sometimes just zipitup.com. That is a good strategy. What about encouraging kids? Is that something that you want to also get kids involved? Is this something that you also see 15, 16-year-olds getting involved? Because I'm saying this because I've taken my son on these kind of trips.
Sure. Well, I'll speak as a mother now. I'll put on my mom cap. Volunteering is now part of my life, and I'm involving my 6 and 3-year-olds. 6 and 3-year-old when I go into the village every week now to work with local communities. I would say, and my own personal volunteering journey started when I was 15 years old. I would say start as young as possible, but the key to volunteering well is being educated and aware of what you're stepping into. So there's this thing between your expectations versus what is really on the ground. As a volunteer, I think one of the things that you should look out for is you really need to be ready to rough it out. It's not a holiday. It's not your typical holiday where you sign up for a 5 or 4-star hotel and eat great food, and then you go sightseeing, but you're really there to help. And so that perspective of what a volunteer trip versus a holiday is, that needs to be sorted out first before you leave. The second thing is, I think as a responsible volunteer, do as much research prior to arriving at the place itself. So for example, the culture, the people that you're going to meet, the food that you're going to eat, how do you show respect to the local community, especially when you're in Thailand? The head is a very respected part of the body, and so you don't pat a child on the head. That's a no-no. Things like how you dress, and most of the time when you volunteer, you're in rural communities, and this is in general. How you dress is very, very important, and sometimes we avoid this by sending out pre-trip information to our volunteers with simple guidelines on how you should dress. Dress decently so that you don't offend the local community. And so start them as young as possible. 15, 16 is great. If you can do it with your child, even better, because it is a learning experience. And trust me, your first volunteer experience oftentimes is more beneficial for you as a volunteer than it is for a community. Your life will be changed in as much as you want to go there and make a difference. You'll come back changed.
Yeah, for me, I totally agree that with this kind of trips, it will be an amazing experience and learning experience for children as well. I remember some of our clients, like one of them said that in the beginning, so they brought 2 of their kids, still in elementary school. In the beginning, both of the kids were kind of like reluctant to mingle with the local kids. But then when they saw a children's book, Asterix in the bookshelf, and then suddenly they were like, oh my God, I read this at home. And suddenly like all the wall kind of like fell down. Yeah, so and then like the bonding started to appear, and then they started to play with the kids and talk and then read together. So yeah, it was amazing. And then like coming home at the end of the trip, both of these kids told the parents that, Mommy, thank you. This was the best holiday ever. So I'm like, oh. And then another clients of us who was also regular books donators, they went on holiday, and in one of the villages in Flores, they visited our libraries, and they have 3 kids. No. They have two girls. And when they saw the bookshelf, and one of the girls found her childhood book, because like they donated the kids' books and it had her name, and then she burst into tears. Mom, it was my favorite book. Oh no, I'm so happy that these kids are reading my books. And for her, it was like one of the most memorable experience. And since then, she became our loyal volunteer. And now she is in the university.
I don't have a lot to say. I think I totally agree with both of you. Right. And also believe in the experiential education. You know, learning is not always in a classroom, not always be in the classrooms. But I think it's very impactful for kids at that age to go out and learn. And I think we also encourage them to explore that passion and see what they can do in life. And sometimes I feel like it's, reflect into my life as an adult. I feel like as an adult, whatever you do, you feel like it's not impactful anymore. You feel like, oh, I've done this, it's okay. But young people, it's important to think about what direction they should go and what kind of passion we want them to have.
Deborah, so you now living in KK, and you go to the village ever so often, right? And 6 and 3-year-olds. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, education and all sort of thing, as typical mother, middle-class mother. What are you hoping that you will leave them? What's the learning at 6 and 3-year-old? What kind of impact can it have for them at such an age?
As a parent, any parent, you want to leave your children and you want to teach your children values such as honesty, integrity, generosity, hospitality, all those good traits, right? And many times these good traits are not taught just by talking or nagging, or you keep reminding them about it. It's really taught and caught if they see you doing it and if they're involved. And so I realized that as young as they are, I am actually sowing seeds into their lives that they do not see now, but one day I hopefully will be able to see the fruits of it. And I'll share with you one story of my son who was, when we were still living in Cambodia, and he was 2.5 years old, and we were planning a Christmas program. And he saw all, we had about 10 volunteers staying in the same house, and we were sharing the entire house together. And he was playing. And so I didn't really think about involving him in packing the gifts because he was busy playing. But what he did was he came over and he says, Mom, I want to help, right? And I sat him in the entire supply chain of packing gifts, and he, finished all of it. And then he asked, where are these going to? I said, these are going to A, B, and C village. Subsequently, a few days after that, we went to these villages by truck and by motorbike to these villages, and he personally handed those gifts out to the children. See, an aha moment like this happens when they see that they can actually be part of a bigger picture, or a greater cause rather than, kind of sitting around and playing. And since then, although he doesn't really remember the story, but because we keep telling, that story, and he knows of pictures, he sees pictures of him packing the gifts, now he continues to do it. When we run programs for people, he would volunteer and say, hey, Mom, what can I do as a 6-year-old? And sometimes he sits down with our primary school students in the hostels, and they're not very good at English. And because English is technically his first language, he would sit down and teach them how to read. And I think it's these nuggets that we kind of reap and say, hey, I think, these seeds are beginning to show its fruits, little by little.
All right, I'm going to open the floor for questions. So what we'll do is, get you to raise a hand. I've got a lovely mic runner who will come by and just maybe, your name and your question. Thank you, Sumi. Right? So yes, do we have a mic runner?
With the rise of volunteerism, what you also get these days is scam volunteerism. I recently had to talk down a friend of mine from paying 20,000 ringgit to go to Iceland to paint a school because I told him there are no schools in Iceland that require you to paint their walls. So for the benefit of everybody here, could you perhaps share with us what are some, in your view, red flags for volunteerism scams? I know if it's too good to be true, it isn't true, but that's generic. Do you have any specifics for us, what we could look out for in terms of volunteerism scams?
What's everything with this paint? Huh? Okay, yeah.
Easy to get.
Yeah, what should we look out for? Because it sounds really good, right? I'm going to, okay, not Iceland, that's for sure. But like, I'm going to do, it feels good. I feel good about giving that money because I think it's genuine. How will I know what's real?
Again, I think go back to, tourism companies not specialize in development work. And I think along the line of those marketing, sometimes you see that around the world. This word is very strong. I think been using it a lot all over online. They call it poverty porn. And sometimes you can see, the stricken, like poor kid were featured online representing that package. And say if you go on this trip, you pay this amount of money, you can change the lives of that kid. Or you can pay $3,000, you can go to Nepal and ride an elephant, and also at the same time volunteering, you change Nepali lives. And those kind of messages that sound so easy. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions that we always believe that volunteering is an easy work. Therefore, development work is the same. So I think to look out for is, I'm not 100% sure, but to see if the message is that easy, I think you should be a bit skeptical and you should ask some more questions and see if it is really true. And also, in reality, I don't think you could make a difference, as what we all agree today, that you don't really make a difference within a few days, and at the same time you did a holiday. And I think it's and also look into their different, child protection policy. And if they say, we welcome everyone, you don't need to have skills. You can come and play with our kids, and you can do this and do this. That must be a red flag, just to pinpoint and to see that.
Yeah, I think do a lot of research, read more. I'm sure like in Google something will come out if it's a scam. And also like if it's a travel agency that links to a non-profit organization, Google the non-profit organization, because like also like sometimes like you go on a elephant tour, but it's an exploitation. Like, yeah, those elephants are tortured and things like that, and you don't want to be involved in that. So please do research before you do anything like that.
If it sounds too good, there's something wrong, right? Okay, and too easy, no pain, no gain, no true. Anything to add? No? Yes, we have a question as well up front.
Hi everyone, I'm Prachi Garg from India. My question to the panelists is, how can I figure out what are the available opportunities for volunteering? For example, if I'm traveling to, let us say, Malaysia itself, how can I figure out that before my travel itself, that yes, there are travel opportunities, there are volunteering opportunities available. Are there any websites or a one place, one-stop shop wherein I can figure out the volunteering opportunities? That's one. A part of it, the second question goes like, and how can I validate their credibility?
There isn't one website that says when you search volunteering in Malaysia. So yeah.
There are some gap year websites that you can go on. But I would say as an independent traveler, another route to go is to actually plan your own volunteering opportunities instead of going, the tour operator route where they throw in a package to say that, you're going to volunteer somewhere if you're wary of it, because oftentimes there would be additional cost. And I think one of the questions to ask would be, can I plan this with less? Right, and are they charging an extravagant fee? But going back to your question, is there a one-stop center, and how do you start? I would say do your research. For example, if you're going to Bangkok and you want to volunteer, check out charities or NGOs in Bangkok, and then from there, kind of sift through what charities are you passionate about? Because I think certain, people are passionate about different things. So is it an animal cause? Is it a human rights cause? And then from there, narrow down your search to see if they have any volunteer or internship opportunities that you can be involved in. And then perhaps also ask them, would 3 or 5 days actually make a difference? If I'm going to volunteer with you. I think if the organization is truthful, they would tell you whether or not your expertise is actually beneficial or not. Yeah.
Yes, there's a question at the back, so the mic runner can go and run way at the back. Maybe you should sit up front.
Hi,
Rachel.
this might more be a Deborah question. I have a daughter who's 4, and I was just wondering if you take any other security measures or extra measures when you bring your children.
Young children, yes, we actually have Skype calls with all our volunteers prior to them coming, and that's for reference checks and security checks. As a 4-year-old, if I'm sure the 4-year-old will come with a parent, right? I would say look out for things like, when you're interacting with the locals, you wanna safeguard them by making sure that they're dressed properly, that they're not in a secluded place, just with the local, just all those basic general safety precautions that you would do for a 4-year-old. And then beyond that, I think it's also matching the expectations of what they would be experiencing on the ground. So if you were to volunteer with us, you won't be staying in hotels. Instead, you will be staying in hostels, bunk beds, basic amenities, squat toilets, sometimes no water. And so kind of preparing them for that experience instead of kind of, throwing them there and then go and rough it out. But then we talk through with the volunteer itself what to expect on the ground. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, so, yep. No follow-on question. No. I went to a social enterprise farm in the Philippines. So I went first, looked at the place, everything. And then after that, my 15-year-old son, I brought him there and then I left. And I just left him there for 2 weeks. He had too much fun, which was not the objective. I didn't want him to have too much fun. But I think one of the things is I think the parents should do the research first. And if the kid is so young, you'll be with your kid, right? One more question from the floor.
I can add on that because my daughter is also 4, but I took her everywhere, even to the remote islands. Like she's been more than 15 times to Komodo Island. But what I always do is first, like I always put on mosquito repellent on her because there are a lot of malaria and dengue fever and all that. So do your research and see what kind of diseases that are in the area or potentially can get affected to your daughter, and just do a lot of precautions and bring the medications and always bring sunscreen and all that, and also if there are options not to stay in local people's houses, if it's better to stay on the boat, then maybe you should prefer to stay on the boat instead of in local people's houses, because sanitation is very important too for little kids. They can get affected to diarrhea and all that. Yes. So
One more question?
This question is primarily for Deborah. Have you ever come across some fraud volunteers as well? Folks who kind of pretend that yes, they are they have come for the volunteering and they turn out to be fraud, and you have like more of a headache from them? Any of such experiences and how you dealt with?
Thankfully, no, because as I mentioned, all our volunteers have to fill up application forms online, and after that, if you do qualify, we would arrange for a Skype call. Even after that, sometimes we have to turn down volunteers if their expertise do not match the needs on the ground. And so just by doing those precautionary steps, we have been able to avoid pitfalls like that. So yeah, and also, before our volunteers come in, we actually they have to sign a terms and condition, which tells them exactly what their boundaries are as a volunteer, what they can and cannot do, and so that highly reduces the risk of a fraud volunteer. Yeah.
I'm going to just end off with each of you saying or giving an advice why someone should consider volunteering or doing charity when they travel. What ultimately is good for them? Why is it good for them? Let's start with you, Yud.
I think I know as a person we need to learn and grow, and I think it's by going out, do that, and having that experience. I think you, I don't know, maybe create some more empathy. And you see through or beyond the borders of just Cambodia or Malaysian, everyone the same without those borders. And by doing those kind of things, and then you can learn and reflect from your, back into your personal thoughts and belief. And also, don't forget to ask your question, to ask yourself and challenge yourself too. Why do you do this? Is it really, what does it matter? Is it matter for you or matter for the community? And also challenge yourself in what you do, and then have some more questions on yourself. And I think by doing that, you have more clear ideas and thoughts. And I think it's important to learn, and I think it's the countries really need people like that. Don't ask what the world need. Maybe ask, what the world need is people who come alive, like you guys, like all of you. So I think it's important to do that. And also, just again, as what we all said, just do a lot of research and ask yourself questions, and yeah, it's important.
Nila?
Okay, before I have my own nonprofit organization, I've always volunteered in many organizations, and I think when you think that you're helping people by volunteering, actually you gain more. The experience itself change you. So I think, yeah, it really adds a lot of values and a lot of benefits to your life. So yeah, try it.
The world is bigger than you, myself, and I. Really, if you step out of your comfort zone, you'll realize that, hey, I'm actually given an opportunity to breathe and live for a reason, and why you should try volunteering. At least do it once, YOLO, right? Do it once in your life, and then see what comes out from it. Even if you've never thought about volunteering, hopefully this session will make you want to slip in something in your next travel. I often say this, and I'm still quite young, but I want us all, especially me, to think about this word called legacy. I think all of us are given one chance to live, and we really don't know when it will end. But what will we leave behind after we pass on? And those seeds that we leave behind, hopefully it will do something good for others. Yeah, and so legacy, that's the reason. But also YOLO, just do it once, and it is fun, as you mentioned.
And I think you'll ultimately be very grateful for the life you have once you've experienced it. So on that legacy, gratitude, that whole experience of learning and not thinking you're giving, That's another thing. So on that note, thank you very much, Yud, Nila, Deborah. Thank you very much for sharing. Hope you're all inspired to do this at least once. Thank you.
Please give them a big round of applause.